Nashville. It's Keep Pound Den.
Back here at the Tin Roof today, here on Demombrian. Keep PounDENN. Tripp Morgan. Well, actually, I should say my name. I'm Den. At Keep PounDENN.
Yeah.
Tripp Morgan's here as well. He's at Panthers Source. We're today part of the Riot Network, powered by Ortho Carolina. Again, live at the Tin Roof here on Demombrian in Nashville.
Beautiful day today.
It's actually a sunny day in Nashville. Everything that we were expecting yesterday to be.
Yes.
Before we
hoping.
actually came here.
And I got drenched. That's all
Yeah.
good.
So we're live here talking day two, man. You know, day one, a lot of surprises.
Yeah.
I thought, at least. I mean, let alone the Panthers pick. We'll obviously get into Brian Burns in just a minute. But, I mean, even just going down the board, didn't know if Kyler Murray was going to be that pick. He ends up being that first pick of the draft.
It's going to cause a lot of internal drama there.
A lot of talk about Josh Rosen, the Dolphins maybe a spot for him. Unfollowed them on Twitter, the Cardinals. I guess he followed the
and
Dolphins
Instagram.
or on Instagram. Followed them on all these networks. So the new age of 2019 of what's going on in that room.
He's not following. him anymore.
It's basically the Bachelorette of going through Instagram. So
double shot of love there.
I think Rosen to the Dolphins is pretty intriguing. I mean, Ryan Tannehill just never really panned out as their quarterback. I mean, I don't think he's a bad quarterback.
No.
I don't think his career's over. I wouldn't call him a backup. I don't really know exactly where he goes at this point.
Is his career over before Jameis Winston's?
You're going to make me do that again. Because So that's what I told Bobby was that, that I thought his career was over. So,
right.
But then Cleveland Farrell, man, fourth pick.
Dude, that was
Oakland.
probably the shock to me.
Yeah, because, is Gruden reaching there to replace? Like, how much pressure is on John Gruden to replace Khalil Mack?
If that was him and Mayock's replacement, I think that's I mean, obviously we haven't seen him play. I mean, you've seen his college tape. We haven't seen him transpire into the NFL to see what he's going to do there yet. But you can't put those two in the same category right now. Him at 4 was just. And the funny thing is, like before, they were talking about they couldn't trust anyone in the scout room and this and that, leaking out sources and yada yada. I'm like, who was going to jump you at 4 for Farrell, dude?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean you have Farrell, you had Montez Sweat, you had Brian Burns.
I mean, really only Williams, Boza, and Murray are off the board there.
Right.
I mean, you basically have the whole draft in front of you. Is that where you go Farrell? I don't know. I mean,
dude, they were talking about him dropping to Carolina or even further. So that was pretty shocking.
But let's bring it back home here, man. I never expected Brian Burns to make it past not only the Falcons, not only the Packers, and also the Dolphins. I mean, when we use the Draft Network's mock draft generator, those 3 teams, in almost every single time I did it, took Brian Burns. A clear need for a pass rusher. The Falcons take 2 offensive linemen in this draft. Even their fans at Mercedes-Benz were a little confused.
They said Lindstrom. The guy turned and was like, who?
and I'm getting called out for being happy about Brian Burns. First of all, it's mind-blowing to me that Panthers fans aren't happy about Brian Burns.
How? Why?
And we've met a lot of them here in Nashville that are not happy with the pick of Brian Burns, saying that you have to protect Cam. I talked about it yesterday, how I was on the offensive tackle side of it, because, and it literally says these words in my mock draft on the Riot Report, because Brian Burns is likely not going to be on the board.
Exactly.
He was my top pick.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it comes down to Burns and Dillard, I think that Burns was just their guy.
Yeah.
And if you think that they should have taken tackle, that's fine. That's a totally understandable request and concern.
Mm-hmm.
But Tripp, 32 picks are done. I mean, we still got 2 days of the draft.
Yeah.
The draft is not over.
Nah, far from
There are many names in this draft still. There's Greg Little.
Jawan Taylor.
We were going through the list here. We'll go through it all for the next 2 hours here. We're here 1 to 3 again at the Tin Roof here on Demombrian in Nashville. Come by and hang out with us if you're in the area. But I don't clearly I would be shocked if the next pick is not an offensive tackle.
Especially with the way it's fallen. I mean, that's the thing. And you talk about people not liking Brian Burns. You mentioned the mock draft generator. Mm-hmm. Yeah, every time I used it, it was Falcons, Brian Burns. Not that the mock draft generator knows anything, but
I have to fix my mock draft now. I had Savage going to the Panthers in the second round, so that was a high pick there for him too.
Yeah, he went early too, which I he's very athletic. We both liked him a lot. I definitely didn't think he'd be there after the second round, but Brian Burns falling, I don't see how you could be upset. And that was really the thing. Like I mentioned it, leading up to the draft that, my pick was for Carolina. If Brian Burns is there, I thought he was the surefire, pick for Carolina. The interest, what he fits for the new 3-4 scheme that they're talking about running more of, he fits that. Nails it. And then Andre Dillard was our pick because we didn't think Burns would be available. And then, like you said in your mock draft, I mean, that was our whole thing is we just didn't see Burns being available at this point. If he is, I feel like it was a shoo-in just like DJ Moore was the obvious choice that they wanted to go with last year. I mean, what we want and what the Carolina does are two different things, and I think a lot of people get mixed up in that sometimes. When I go to look at what Carolina's mock draft, and I try to do a mock draft for Carolina, I look at what I think they're going to do. What I want to do doesn't matter because they're not listening to me. I'm not the one making the pick. We try to do these things based off their interest.
You don't have any input in there.
No, you didn't.
They don't read your 12.
Yeah, that's how Brian Burns, DJ Moore. Nah, I wish. I don't know if I want that kind of pressure. Then you handle that kind of pressure in the war room.
You're always going to have the doubters, and one thing that comes with Brian Burns is the concern of his lack of size as far as defensive end, but with a new hybrid kind of 3-4, those are the guys that fit that. I mean, Brian Burns is. And I'm not really going to compare him as a player to Von Miller, but as a size, they're very similar builds, especially even when they were in the combine, have similar results too. So that's clearly the type of player they're looking for. Bruce Irvin was brought in as well. If you're looking to, I said to you, if you're looking to replace, a Julius Peppers or looking to get another Mario Addison, Brian Burns isn't the guy on paper.
Right.
But with the new defense, that speed is something that Carolina has not seen on the defensive line in a long time. You
saw it work. I mean, it's worked great for Von Miller in the Broncos. I mean, Von Miller, the comparisons, Von Miller 6'2", Brian Burns 6'4", 246 for Von Miller, 249 weight. Both ran a 4.53. Von Miller had a 1 inch more vertical at 37 versus 36 for Burns. And, Burns can only put on weight and muscle and power at this point. And that's really the only thing that, scouts and analysts have said that he lacks, like you mentioned.
Well, I'll tell you one thing.
That's an easy fix.
Being in that media room, I walked by Brian Burns, and he looks like a basketball player.
Right.
And I guess Julius Peppers was a basketball player
as
well.
Yep.
So it's not necessarily a bad thing.
It typically transpires well into the NFL.
He's a very tall, I don't want to call him skinny, but not your typical
lean
D end. And I think that I'm excited for what he can bring. I never expected him and Dillard to be on the board.
No.
I would have been perfectly happy with either pick. I understand why they went Brian Burns. He's their guy. A lot of ties to the Panthers.
Right.
And that's what it is.
And it's a fun story at the end of the day. His brother getting drafted in the 7th round from Carolina. He seemed to be just as excited in the phone call.
I think Brian's words were he was having a fit.
Yeah.
This is Jordan tweeted that out. So good stuff here, man. Dave Gettleman, though. Really, we got to talk about Dave Gettleman real quick. Really, just leaving a mark. That was one of the most surprising picks of the first round as well.
It's funny to look back that we were fans of Gettleman for like his first 2 seasons.
Dude, I loved Dave Gettleman for like 8 minutes.
He was making business moves. He was making
he's a Boston
moves.
guy.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about all that, but I like one Boston guy. I can't speak for the rest of them, but no. I'm glad he's getting I'm glad he's moved on from Carolina. Or he's out of Carolina making all these moves now because he drafts Daniel Jones at pick 6, right, quarterback, which was talked about a lot. Them having to move on from Eli Manning, but now he goes up and he says we can sit him for 3 years if we have to. We still have Eli. It's your 6th overall pick.
I can't believe
bro.
anything that Dave Gettleman says anymore.
Well,
he also said we didn't sign OBJ to trade him. You know, and so.
He didn't, but then he got a very good offer. He couldn't refuse.
I don't think you can believe a word out of Dave Gettleman's mouth. I don't see how you can actually really take Daniel Jones at 6 and sit him for 3 years.
No.
Maybe 1 year. I don't even think you should sit him for 1 year.
I think DG says things just to spite the media sometimes. He just gets fed up with the media knowing so much at some point and stuff getting leaked out that he's like, no, guys, we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
We don't have to. I can do whatever I want with this team. And clearly he can because he's been making some ridiculous moves lately. So
So, hey, let us know in the comments how you feel about Brian Burns. And also where the Panthers should go day 2. We had 3 picks today.
Fun.
A lot of possibilities.
Maybe 2
you got
picks.
You got some trade pieces. We talked about Vernon Butler. What happens with that? Specific needs at offensive tackle, but a lot of positions aren't off the board. I mean, a couple of the top safeties are gone, but safety's up there. Cornerback, I said, is not off the table as a high pick for me today. Even
I'm not against that.
It really should be even more interesting day than yesterday, and I think that yesterday was so interesting because they got the guy. They never thought. I don't
Yep.
think that they thought that they could really even get.
Big win for Carolina yesterday. in my opinion.
Once the Falcons took Lindstrom,
Yep.
I was like, wow,
Yep.
this because you knew that the Redskins were going for
Yep,
quarterback. And the Dolphins, I forget who they picked, but I thought he might go there as well.
Speaking of the Redskins, man, they pretty good first round.
I think the
Haskins,
Redskins won round 1. Yeah, well, we'll ask some of our
Montez.
guests today. We got a bunch of people joining us, both on the phone here in person. And actually, we're gonna bring one of them on now, our buddy Vince Richardson from the Riot Report over in London. We'll do him a favor and get him on early so he doesn't have to stay up for this whole draft. But we're gonna take a quick break, get Vince on the line. I know he was big on Greg Little.
Yes.
So I'm interested to see what he thinks the Panthers should do today as far as do you wait? I mean, he is the 5th offensive tackle ranked left on the board. 16 picks is a lot, though.
I think he can fall, man. I told you earlier that's my pick for if they stay at 47. If they move up for an offensive tackle, I'm fine with that. But at pick 47, with the way the board's falling right now, he's my pick there. Their interest is very strong with him. They've had so many visits and workouts. So that would be my pick. But I know he's a big little guy. We'll find out from him. But I like him at 47. If you start trading and missing out on, you're already middle of the board with the amount of picks in the NFL versus other teams. You start losing some picks. You still got other holes you need to fill. You still got to hit safety at some point. But we'll get into all of it.
Yeah, we're gonna get Vince on the line. We're gonna take a quick break while we get the phone going here. We'll be right back. You're listening to Den and Tripp on the Riot Network.
Live from Nashville, it's Keep PounDENN.
Back here at the Tin Roof on DeMonbrian here with my man Tripp Morgan. He's at Panthers Source at Keep PounDENN here. What's going on, buddy?
You gotten DeMonbrian right seven times in a row now.
I have. I'm really crushing it.
Hey, I felt better. The Uber driver on the way this morning actually said he's a local, lived here 20 years, and he actually said he's been pronouncing it Demon Brewing as well for a long time and got corrected last
Demon
week.
Brewing would be a cool brewery. Maybe we can do something like that. Hey, we had some Skype issues with our friend Vince. We'll get him on in a minute, but we threw a little audible in there.
Audible?
And we're gonna bring on. Yeah, we're gonna bring on our buddy Jared Feinberg. He joined us on the draft, basically lead-up shows, and gave us a number of positions. And now that the draft's underway, we're bringing him back on. He's at JRod Draft Scout on Twitter. Jared, you there, buddy?
I'm here, man.
There he is. What's up, man? Good to talk to you again. Thanks for hopping on with us. We're here live in Nashville.
Sorry?
We're here live in Nashville getting stared at by some Broncos fans. So anyway, hey, man, thanks for hopping on with us. Crazy night one. I haven't even talked to you at all. This is literally the first time that we're talking about night one. Let's just kind of start there as an overview, man. I saw that, there were some messages on Twitter that I saw come from you that was how you expected the board to go. But to me, that's completely not how I expected the board to go. What was kind of besides the Panthers pick, the whole draft, what was your take on night one? Any moves really come out of nowhere? And finally, I know you're a big offensive tackle guy. How'd you feel about the Panthers taking Brian Burns with their final selection there?
Well, first off, the draft sort of went as I expected, but I did not expect Daniel Jones to be the Giants pick at 6. I
don't think anyone
dumb
did.
Move by,
Yeah.
I don't know what Gelman's doing with the New York Giants. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But
thank God he's away from
the
here.
board, right? And the board for Carolina, it fell perfectly for us.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I had a gut feeling entering the draft yesterday that Burns is probably going to go before Carolina, and Jonah might end up being available possibly. But then I forgot Cincinnati needed a offensive tackle, and I was like, well, the NFL really likes John Williams.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what they're going to do with Jawan Taylor. So I was like, by 6'10", I was like, yeah, Brian Burns is still on the board. Brian Burns might be a 16.
Yeah, I
didn't pick 16.
I never thought he would make it past Atlanta.
Was Brian?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was worried about.
So
Brian Burns.
You do say best player available, Jared, and I think that's very interesting because a lot of Panthers fans down here online with us on Twitter might not agree with that. Saying that Cam's the biggest priority,
yep.
and are actually mad that the Panthers did not take a Dillard there or whoever was left on the board as far as the offensive tackles go, and they did go with Brian Burns. How do you address that take that Burns was the wrong pick there?
To me, I tweeted it on a little thread a couple days ago that saying if I had to choose between Brian Burns and an offensive lineman, I'd take Brian Burns because he is the best player available.
Mm-hmm.
Carolina is the best player available on their draft board. They showed interest in Brian Burns from the start. They loved Brian Burns.
Yeah.
Brian Burns came in for a visit a couple weeks ago, and the board just fell perfectly for them. And so what Burns offers for us is, of course, pass rush, but he can also be a very solid run defender. I think Burns has the potential to be a Pro Bowler or All-Pro at the next level, or, he's probably going to be a 10-plus sack guy.
I'm into that.
I'm down for that.
Hey, I think I found the first bachelorette party in Nashville that is not pissed off about the NFL draft.
They seem like they're having a good time.
Yeah, they seem like they're having a good time. They're probably bleeding.
I did see like a news thing about like a bachelorette party being pissed off about the draft. I'm like, okay, I don't care about your damn bachelorette party.
Yeah.
It's the NFL draft.
Yeah, I saw actually
Let's
Joan
get on
and the girl gang made a great video
Yes.
saying that they're down here trying to enjoy the NFL draft, but there's all these bachelorette parties happening. I thought that was a pretty good response from Joan.
Let me go ahead and address the offensive tackle issue.
Go for it.
I get that Andre Dillard was on.
I was like, wow. Imagine if they traded up and got Burns and Dillard. Like I would have literally lost my mind.
And reports are coming out now that they were almost traded with Seattle to get back into the 29th pick to get back into the first round for an offensive tackle. But these guys kept falling.
I think they would have taken Juwan Taylor out of Florida. He was my top-ranked offensive tackle heading into the draft.
Right.
You get my top-ranked pass rusher and top-ranked offensive tackle. That's easily one of the best drafts I've ever covered as a Panthers fan.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I get chills thinking about those two.
Talents, that's incredible.
Yeah. So Jared, about 4.5 hours until they take that stage again. As far as the way that you cover drafts, round one is always kind of, you at least have an idea where day two, I should say, 3 picks today for the Panthers. This is kind of your area. What's kind of a realistic scenario here? Because there's so many positions we were just talking about that aren't off the table. I mean, you could take a cornerback. You arguably need a safety, but the priority is probably that offensive tackle. What happens with the next 3 picks today?
I think they're going to end up addressing offensive tackle at 47, whether that's Juwan Taylor or Cody Ford, Dalton Renser.
Greg Little's a big name. How do you feel about Greg Little? That's a name that I haven't heard you mention specifically, but I don't think. But I've seen it mocked.
I've mentioned him once. He's raw in some areas, but the flashes are very good. His stance, his base, like they need work. His footwork is a little iffy, but when he gets it right at times, he looks like one of the best offensive tackles in the draft. I think if you fix those things up, which can easily be fixed up, I think Greg Little could be one of the steals of the draft.
Yeah, and you mentioned that, Jared. And that's kind of what I've seen with other people. You talk about his footwork, analyzing him and watching his film and whatnot. But Carolina, again, has showed a lot of interest in Greg Little. I mean, just as much as they had with Brian Burns and even Montez Sweat.
I think the Panthers are a big team that you can, as Edgar says, read the tea leaves.
Exactly.
And when they're a team that really puts a lot of stock into those visits. And you look at players that have visited multiple times. I believe Greg Little is one of them.
Yes, he is. And shout out to them for keeping up with all that stuff. Yeah, Billy Jean, all of them guys.
Jean, that site's great.
Yeah.
I don't know it off the top of my head. Gene Farrell on Twitter and Billy Marshall, BillyM_91. You can find it over there. The visits going into tonight. Jared, any situation you see the Panthers could move around in tonight's rounds, as far as either up or down?
I could see them trading up back into the second round. If a player that they like is available in the back end of the second round, they could probably use their 2 third-round picks to trade back in to the first round. Or not first round, the second round. Players that could be available, Nazir Adelaire, who I mocked to Carolina in the second round in my last mock draft. He could possibly be available in the back end of the second round. But you just never know here in day 2 what the board will look like. We're just going to have to wait and see what it looks like once Carolina's on the clock at 47, 77, pick 100, right?
Yeah, so we got 47, 100, and 115, I believe, are the 3 Panther picks tonight. 3 picks in the top 100 for the Panthers. So that's, I think you got to nail your tackle there. You so you were talking tackle there, Jared. What beyond tackle? So when you start talking about those 2 third-round picks, 100, 115. Is that an area where you might see a double down on either an offensive tackle or another edge rusher? Or do you think that you need to start looking elsewhere, start looking at that cornerback? You don't really have a nickel solution. You might, We talked about that yesterday. I think
Secondary
that's
safety.
I think it's a good unknown, but it's also kind of a scary unknown where you don't know what you got with Cockrell,
Yeah.
Elder, Jackson. Would he ever move it to the inside? Do you bring in a young guy? You also got Cersei at safety.
And then the QB rumors.
Yeah, and then Will Greer's
like
still
it.
up there. So, where do you go in the third round if you're the Panthers?
Like I said, it's just going to depend on how the board falls for us. But a couple guys I noted on my draft board, an edge rusher that could be available. I would say Anthony Nelson out of Iowa. He's basically he's a white Keelan Farrell, basically. If you want to think about that.
Okay.
Another guy could be Trayvon Mullen out of Clemson, or his teammate Mark Fields, who can.
I like Mark Fields.
Great back.
I think me and
Mark
you
Fields,
had Mark Fields, Jared, in our drafts. A guy who didn't touch the field a ton, but the last time he did was that national championship game, and he did pretty well.
Yeah, and he made big plays.
Yeah.
He made big plays against Alabama.
So it's not exactly a what have you done for me lately? I think Mark Fields is a good example of that. The last game that he played in college was one of his best, and I think that might shoot him not terribly higher up, but might push him up some of those draft spots than he might have been in anyway. So I'm cool with Mark Fields.
He was a complete unknown to a lot of people until the Senior Bowl. The Senior Bowl is when he really started picking up steam in terms of hype. I think if there's one team that take a chance on him in the third round, or possibly in the back end of the third round, the compensation picks, it'd be Carolina. They need a nickel. They need I think Fields is easily a better version of Captain Marlin, and what we believe Captain Marlin should have been in a second stint.
Yeah,
that was disappointing.
Anyway, Jared, thanks for hopping on with us. Jared's at JRod Draft Scout on Twitter. Awesome follow for the draft season.
Good stuff.
He came on with us each week. Final question for you, Jared. I mean, me and you both were pretty high on Savage at safety. I didn't think he'd go in the first round, but he did. Are safeties becoming a tougher thing to find for the Panthers? Do you think that's off the table, and they might look into more of free agency for that? I know Trey Boston had some sort of cryptic Carolina tweet today. Was it kind of all or none with a couple guys in this draft as far as safety, or are there still safeties out there that you think the Panthers could take a chance on?
There are plenty of safeties out there that they could take in third round or today, second round, third round, and so on. You got Deontay Thompson out of Alabama. You got Taylor Rapp out of Washington. You got Marquise Blair out of Utah. I'm trying to see here on my draft board. Juan Thornhill out of Virginia. Let's see. And then there's another one. Amani Hooker out of Iowa.
I was gonna say there was one that I remember that you mentioned in one of our segments. So
Hooker's more of a strong safety, but I think he's versatile enough to play free safety. He's not that athletic, but he is very sound and very smart as a football player.
Awesome. Well, hey, Jared, thanks for hopping on with us, man, especially for short notice, on short notice, rather. Jared Feinberg's over on at JRod Draft Scout on Twitter. Thanks for joining us here at the Tin Roof. We're going to be here for another hour and a half or so. We get some special guests coming up on live.
Yes.
And we're going to bring some more people on the phone. But we're going to take a quick break. Thanks again to Jared for jumping on with us. And people, as you can tell, are a lot more lively here in Nashville on day 2. We're going to take a quick break.
I love it.
You listening to Den and Tripp on the Riot Network. We'll be right back.
Live from Nashville, it's Keep PounDENN.
Back here at the Tin Roof in Nashville on Demombre, and awesome hosts, by the way. The Tin Roof has been very nice to us.
Fantastic.
They have, I don't know if you can really tell on the live feed, but they have us up on the stage, the famous Tin Roof stage, the original Tin Roof stage.
Putting us on a pedestal.
So we're actually looking down at, not looking down in a bad way, but physically looking down at the folks here at the Tin Roof, and it is filling in a lot more than it did yesterday. Let's be honest. Friday at the draft is a lot more exciting, but also what's exciting is we finally got Skype working with our pal Vince Richardson over across the pond in the UK. Vince, you over there, bud?
Yeah, I'm over here.
We did it. Vince, thanks for hopping on with us, man. I know, we talked to Ollie in the Royal Riot last night, and as far as how the draft is over in the UK, I mean, being so late, I think it started at 1 a.m. last night, right?
Yeah, started at 1 a.m., finished just before 6.
So you basically just getting up.
So, yeah. So are we, So Vince is pulling an all-nighter here. Hey, at least you get a little hour earlier tonight. You get a midnight start tonight over there.
Yeah, but it then runs on later generally on the second day, so yeah.
Well, hey, you've been doing some amazing coverage here on the Riot Report, whether it's on, just comparing DNs, the tackles. You basically went through every position in the last few months. Now the day's here. Day one has gone by. Let's just start at round one, man. I mean, to me, that board was crazy. Or did that go a little along the lines of how you expected it? Was that a surprise to you? Because it seemed in Nashville there were a lot of surprise picks for all the different teams. What'd you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, there were definitely some fairly significant surprises. I mean, like the first 3 picks went, I think, how everyone thought they were going to, for the most part. I mean, Ferrell at 4 was the massive shock.
Yeah.
That completely ripped up everyone's draft boards. And then from there are a few odd ones. I think, I thought the Giants would go for Jones, but I thought that was probably more a thing at 17 than at 6.
Yes, that was a very common theme here. Was what are you doing taking Daniel Jones here? You almost certainly could have gotten him at 17. That I was going to say that at least where I was the biggest shock I should say of round one.
Yeah.
I mean, well, I don't know.
There was definitely some talk of Washington trying to get ahead of them. So I think they probably thought that if they didn't take Jones at 6, that Washington would probably have taken him over Haskins at 15.
Well, I guess that makes sense, because who did they take at 17? The Giants.
Lawrence, the Clemson nose tackle.
Yeah,
right. Okay.
Hog Molly.
Yeah, I always thought that the Redskins.
I
always thought that Haskins was their guy. Maybe I didn't really know the story of them actually wanting Jones, but
I think they were hinting Jones pretty heavily from quite early on, the Giants.
Cool. So, let's talk about the Panthers pick, man. I mean, our mock drafts up on the Riot Report. I had Dillard in like I said to Tripp here in the text. It literally says I have Andre Dillard because Brian Burns will be off the board. Did you ever expect both? Or I shouldn't say Dillard. I don't know how high you were on him, but did you ever expect Dillard Burns and multiple tackles to be there at 16?
No, I didn't. I mean, so in my mock I had Ferrell going to the Panthers because I thought Burns and Dillard would both be long gone.
Both
I think
of them,
Dillard was my 6th overall prospect. Burns was my 7th, and the fact that they were both there at 16 was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Personally, I would have probably preferred Dillard, but you can't complain when you get a player like Burns at 16.
And I was going to say, we just talked to our friend Jared here, and the thing in Nashville, online, on Twitter, there are a lot of Panthers fans upset that Burns was the pick. Like you said, you can't go wrong, but you would have preferred Dillard? Because I was almost, I don't know, I just feel like, they had to take Burns. He was their guy that they didn't expect to be there. I don't know, and I still think that you can get an offensive tackle, but yeah, there is a lot of I guess I don't know what the word is, negativity to the Panthers taking the wrong guy. How do you address that?
I think in terms of Burns and Dillard, I don't think there's really a debate in terms of whether they reached for one or the other in terms of their absolute value. I think the grading on both players is pretty much equal. Like it's not. It's in terms of their actual ability, they're both about the same.
Right.
The issue, is that if you look at who, I mean, it did help from then that there was sort of a bit of a slide. The tackles slid further than they are, so there are some legitimate tackles still in the second round. Mm-hmm. But you could quite easily, like, there are so many more good edge rushers in this class than good tackles that there will almost certainly be a good edge rusher at 47.
And that's completely fair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There might not be. I mean, you're currently basically going and hoping that Greg Little falls to 47 if you're the Panthers right now, or potentially moving up for Greg Little earlier in the second. Whereas I think if you went for Dillard at 16, say, you're not worried because you know one of Chase Winovich, Anthony Nelson, Christian Miller, you know one of them is going to be there at 47,
right.
and Polite, the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know, you were hitting on Greg Little right there. I know you were a big Greg Little guy. Yeah. And I personally think they're either going to move up. Dan and I were talking about it. They're either probably going to move up early into the second to get their offensive tackle. I think I hope that's the move anyway if they move up and get a good one. I also kind of think, and Vincent, you might have an opinion on this, that Greg Little could fall to 47. I mean, I don't think that's a stretch at this point. I mean, you still got guys like Juwan Taylor out there still available. So I still think he could fall at 47. And you still hold on to another pick later on in the draft instead of having to give up a pick, and you still get a starting left tackle. I mean, what do you think about that?
So I think it depends how you look at your board. So and what risk you're willing to take. So, do I think there's a chance Little falls to 47? Yeah, of course. It's not out of the question at all. But if you've got him so much higher graded than everyone else on your board, if you get to pick 40, say, and you can give up a fourth to move up to 40. To get Greg Little, and he's there. It's just not. It's just if you've got him a whole chunk ahead of everyone else, you just don't. It's just not worth taking the risk that he goes just ahead of you.
Right.
Because realistically, what are you going to get for if it's giving up a 4th round pick? Say, the gap between Greg Little for me and the next most impactful player potentially on the board right now is so significant that it's worth giving up that.
Very good point.
That 4th round pick.
Yeah.
For. Like,
I think ESPN has him ranked as the 5th highest tackle on the board right now. That's their rankings. I don't know how you feel about that.
Who do they have ahead of him, out of interest?
I can pull that up for you in just one moment here.
Yeah.
I know they had Taylor at 1. But
okay, yeah, no. So I had Little at 1, Dillard at 2, Titus Howard at 3 were my top 3 tackles.
Howard's number 3. Yep.
Yeah, so, but he's gone.
Yep. So, yeah, did you expect this many tackles to be around starting day 2? I feel like the way that I wrote up the mock, the mock draft was that there's much less tackles, let alone left tackles, than edge rushers, and to go the reverse way, with taking the tackle first, taking the edge rusher maybe in the second or even the third. I had him in the third. I had them taking Savage with the 47th pick. Do you think the Panthers were playing a little bit with fire, taking not just Burns, but just they're not a tackle first? Do you think that, like you just mentioned, they might have to move up a little bit? Would you have rather them go the other route, or do you think they really had no choice than just to take Brian Burns right there?
So I think I would personally have rather they went the other route, but I don't think it's sort of, you do have to. The other bit is, I don't get to interview the prospects. If you really like Burns off the field way more than you like Dillard off the field in terms of, how much you think he's coachable and all that kind of stuff. And there is definitely a bit of a ceiling with Dillard, even though he's very pro-ready.
Right.
It's a legitimate debate to have, and I without being able to interview them and work them out and all that kind of stuff, it's hard to sort of say that one is definitively better than the other. Yeah. I can believe that Little has fallen as far as he has. I think what's necessarily a surprise is how long it took for the second offensive lineman to go off the board.
Right.
In terms of it was Dillard at 22, wasn't it?
Yeah, 22, 23. I just couldn't believe that.
Yep.
And then not just that, but then which offensive lines? Well, no, you had Lindstrom at 14, I suppose, who was a guard. But, and had Bradbury to the Vikings, but. But it was it the Vikings or was it the?
It was the Vikings. It was the Vikings. Yep.
But it was then. Which tackles went when then was the surprise. That Titus Howard going in the end of the first was a little bit earlier than some thought.
Yep.
And I mean, Caleb McGarry going in the late first of the Falcons, I have no idea what they're thinking with that one.
I don't think either of those picks were.
None of their fans knew what they were thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I was 100% sure, Vince, that and this was a case in a lot of the Draft Network mocks and whatever, that the Falcons were in those mocks were attacking edge rushers. Brian Burns went to the Falcons in a lot of those. Two picks, both on the offensive line. Maybe I just don't look into the Falcons that much. Is their line that bad that you got to do that?
So they have had a bit of move over. I don't think they don't have the sort of the left tackle need that the Panthers do, but they do have
interior.
Offensive line.
And I think their defense is in much better shape. Defensive line is in much better shape than their offensive line as well. I mean, they still got Grady Jarrett. They still got Tack McKinley. I mean, they are pretty set there a little bit.
It's true.
I think if Christian Wilkins was there at 14, they'd have taken him.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think he was probably the player they really wanted, and he just went one pick too early. Because although you do have Jarrett and you do have the edge rushers, they don't have that one tech to play in their 4-3.
Yeah.
They don't. No, the guy that Poe was for them in 2017, they haven't really replaced that.
And we are talking about Dan Quinn, head coach here. So
True, defensive guy.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, Vince, this is kind of like we were just saying with Jared. For you guys that cover the draft so well, day one is kind of a lot more just expected kind of moves, even though some of them are surprising. Where day two and day three really get into where the meat and potatoes of where you can build your team. Panthers have 3 picks today, 47, 100, and 115. I guess we'll start out
77, 100, 115 is tomorrow.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Yeah, no, that's all right.
Sorry. As far as the best case scenario today.
Yeah.
To you, I know that tackle's one of them, but you start taking a look at those later picks. What positions are on and off the table for the Panthers there, if you were picking?
So you've the Panthers came into this draft with 4 big needs, and they've addressed one of them.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I think what they have to do today is make sure they get someone at least 2 of those. So that's the other ones. Obviously, offensive tackle we talked about a lot. Free safety. I think if someone like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's there at 47, if Little and the offensive tackles you like are gone, Gardner-Johnson I think is probably then starts to be the player you hope falls.
Okay.
But Nazir Adderley would be another guy who you'd also wouldn't mind at 47. And then the other one is 3 tech. And whilst I think that's probably not where they'd like to go at 47, having just gone defensive line, particularly when you get to 77 and certainly 100, if there's a 3 tech there you like, or someone who you think can play a bit of 3 tech, say an Anthony Nelson, say, is there at 100, I think that then becomes a way you look to go. I mean, the other option there is something I sort of talked about very briefly last night on Twitter was, the 49ers have now basically replaced Solomon Thomas as a starting defensive player.
I saw that, yes.
Given the Panthers probably need to find 3 starters, if you've got these 3 these 4 picks in the next sort of 70-ish picks, if you can bundle one and get a starter, maybe he's got a couple of years off his contract, but if you can find, it's right now it's better they give up a 4 for a starter and focus on hitting with our other 3 picks than sort of say you take a tackle at 47 and you take a free safety at 77, you then don't want to feel that you have to reach for a 3 tech to fill that need at 100. Makes sense. So they've got some flexibility, but I also think, given the quality that has now fallen out of the first round, there is a real possibility they try and move up higher in the second to get either a tackle in Dillard or a player they really value in, say, a Gardner Johnson or maybe even a Greedy Williams.
Yeah, we get some Panthers fans filing in here now. I love it. The tin roof is nuts. Vince, it's Friday at the draft here, I'm going to tell you. I know that you can't really see it on the camera. It is an exciting time. I think we're seeing more excitement, more fans actually out at the bars today.
And I'm wondering if that has something to do with it just being Friday in general.
It might just be Friday. Maybe Friday.
Everybody took off
Nashville.
Friday off work and said, I work Thursday. I'll come in here Friday.
Yeah.
We'll party it down then.
Vince,
I mean,
before we let you, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, just in terms of like the bit you said earlier, I was just thinking about like the idea of sort of the second round sort of being the sort of the key to the draft.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I would say is that you can't afford to mess up your first round picks.
Right.
But if you look at like what Marty Hurney did in his first stint, he kept hitting the first round picks, but the team wasn't able to compete because they weren't able to build a depth of quality players on day 2. Yep. I think they've hit with Burns. What they need to do now is hit at least once more, and this is what they did well last year. Is that they DJ Moore was a good pick, and they went and got Jonte Jackson, and then Ian Thomas in the 4th.
Yep.
You don't have to hit with every single pick, but you can't afford your draft classes to be one great player and
then
nothing.
out. Yep.
The Bill Belichick book of drafting, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, Vince, before we let you go, Vince is over at V Richardson, 444 on Twitter. He writes for us here at the Riot Report. Any of the scout camps, dude, you are everywhere on the site, and we are
the Great British Drafting Show.
Yes,
good stuff.
Your podcast, man. That you are you guys gonna keep that going as far as like the season goes? Is that just gonna be a draft thing?
I don't think we're going to do it consistently throughout the season. Dan actually has a proper serious job. So yeah, but yeah, we'll hopefully bring it back next year, depending on where we're at.
Definitely.
We might do sporadic episodes.
Yeah,
sporadic episodes.
I think the people that follow the Riot Report will be happy with that. Final question I got to ask you, but just because it has come up here, you were talking trade pieces. You were talking about maybe hopping up, even if it's just 7 spots or so, for someone like Greg Little. Talking about Solomon Thomas, does Vernon Butler play into any sort of trade scenario?
For me, he doesn't. Partly because you actually, one, I don't think he's got massive trade value around the league. Mm-hmm. Partly because I think even if you trade him, you still take a cap hit. I think his salary is completely guaranteed for this season. So you'd just be throwing the money away.
Yeah.
You can't get any money back from Vernon Butler. But also Vernon Butler, if you're going to move, like, I know I'm on the losing side of history here to a certain degree, but I actually do quite like Vernon Butler.
Yeah.
I think the Panthers have misused him for a decent amount of the time, but also that his value hasn't been seen. Like, people forget that they talk about him why he isn't getting sack production. Like, he is a 330-pound defensive tackle. His job is to eat up space and force double teams. Yeah. And if you're moving to a 3-4 defense,
I was going to say,
to do that. Like they talk about Carl Love playing the zero tech, but Vernon Butler's got 20 pounds on him.
Yep.
I mean, like, if you want someone to line up over the center in a 3-4 defense, yes, you've got Dontari Poe, but Vernon Butler is an obvious fit for that. This makes loads of sense for Butler.
That's exactly what I was going to ask you, Vince. Is if they do keep transitioning into that 3-4 defense, you actually might see Vernon Butler, his production increase versus what we've seen in the past when people don't like him and they're talking about trading and this and that. You might see that more in a 3-4. I was going to ask you if you agreed with the same thing, so I'm glad you did.
Oh yeah. No, he's if you look at if you actually go and watch the tape, and particularly sort of in the 2017, 2016 when they used to rotate 2x2, so it was always him and Carl Love. Mm-hmm. He would get double teamed, and then Carl Love would get production. Right. And that's not taking things away from Carl Love, because Carl Love had to do what he had to do, and he did a good job of making the most of it.
Yeah.
But they teams, because he wasn't on the it wasn't him and Quan Shaw or him and Starla Tulele or him and Dontari Poe. It was him and Carl Love.
Right.
He was the guy who got doubled to free up everyone else. Mm-hmm. And that has value. I mean, it's maybe not what you spend a first-round pick on.
It's not sexy.
Star got a lot of that treatment here too, as far as not being on the stat sheet. I don't know if you just said that.
Starla Tulele got paid was it $40 million or something to go and do that?
Yep.
And the guy who the Giants drafted at 17 has been drafted to do exactly that.
Yep. Frees up the linebackers and eats up in the middle, and like you said, Quan Short capitalized.
I believe you call those guys hog mollies.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Well, one guy up north does.
Anyway, Vince, thanks for hopping on with us from across the pond over there, man. I know starts late for you tonight. Do you actually watch the draft, or do you kind of DVR this? How does that work?
I stayed up and watched it. I stayed up and watched it. So
Very nice.
I'm quite fortunate that I don't need to be at work tomorrow or today, so I can get up in the early afternoon. But yeah, no.
Well planned.
Well, hey man, we'll keep in touch with you on Twitter again at vrichardson444. Great follow, especially during draft days. With you like that idea of Solomon Thomas and just kind of following the draft over from London. So thanks for hopping on with us here at the Tin Roof in Nashville, and we'll talk to you soon, man. All right.
All right. Bye.
See you later, man.
Take care, Vince.
It's Vince Richardson. We're just through the first hour here on stage here at the Tin Roof in Nashville. We're gonna take a quick break, and we'll be right back. You're listening to Den and Tripp on the Riot Network.
Live from Nashville, it's Keep PounDENN.
Back here at the Tin Roof on Demonbreun. Great time here, Tripp.
8 times.
I know. I'm really crushing the name of it. And Panthers fans filing in here, seeing the Music City Riot. Our man Harrison's over there representing here on day 2 in Nashville. But on the phone now is some folks you may be familiar with if you tune into our show every now and then. We got my dudes, Bobby and Chris. Bobby's at Tacos and Slurpees. Chris is at Peppa Jack NBB. They are the co-hosts of this show, joining us remotely. What's going on, fellas?
What's up? Hustling and grinding, man. That's the hardest working man in Nashville on the phone.
Now, you guys have a big day today. Endgame is like a movie or something, right?
Yeah, but I went and saw it last night.
Oh, okay. And Chris, Taylor Swift's big song today. Taylor Swift was here in Nashville.
Imagine being me and going to an 11 o'clock movie and then having to wait 2.5 hours until after the song came out to have to listen to it. It was a lot of.
And then you actually had to listen to it.
That's a tough sell. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. So.
Yeah, I mean it's the leader in the clubhouse for Song of the Summer. So.
it's the only song in the clubhouse right now, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway,
maybe one day Christopher Nolan will start making songs, and you'll find something you like.
There you go.
I
need like a cool song to come out on the Joker movie day, so I can feel how this day is for you.
Put the joke in Joker there.
But Bobby, sending it over to you, man. You called it. Well, not called it, but Brian Burns was your guy since the Panthers were still playing football.
Bobby willed it.
Yeah,
pounded the table, baby.
I sent to create draft graphics that are going up on the Riot Report. Had to use somebody. Bobby was a big Brian Burns guy. I used Brian Burns. I sent them that photo in like December. Almost like, haha, imagine. And here we are, day 2 in Nashville, on the stage at the Tin Roof, talking about Brian Burns being the pick, but a lot of guys were still on the board. How's today going for you, Bobby? Because I know a lot of people on Twitter aren't exactly maybe as happy as you are today, but hey, Burns is wearing a Panthers jersey next year.
I mean, that's fine. They don't have to be happy. I mean, those are the same people still talking about 2015 like they're going to come around again, so I don't think those people any attention.
Never going to please anybody.
We got to start. Yeah. I mean, I saw somebody say, I don't know if it was Igo or not, but somebody said that we could draft, I think it was like Barry Sanders in their prime, and they would still be upset. Like,
exactly.
Listen, man, it really doesn't matter who we got. I mean, at some point we got to start giving Marty Herney some respect, and start giving him some credit for what he's doing to this team. There was a point where we felt, the window was closing because Cam and Luke were getting older, but the reality is, the way that we're drafting, the way that we're signing, that window just extended 2 to 3, maybe even 4 more years. And it's absolutely amazing to see a guy like Brian Burns taken. I don't believe he was just the best player available that was taken. I believe he fits the mold, seeing the emotion from his brother, who was a former Carolina Panther draft pick, and seeing how he grew up around Julius Peppers. He learned from Julius Peppers. His brother taught him the things Peppers taught him, and Mike Rucker taught him. I don't understand what there's not to like about this pick. I know it may not be a sexy pick for everybody, but it's the right pick.
Yeah.
And, I think one of the biggest things that we've been talking about all day and all night is, the argument is that he's not built like your typical D end. I actually walked by him, and I told Tripp, he literally looks like a basketball player. Tall. I'm not going to call him skinny because he could probably fling me across the room with his pinky, but not your typical looking D end. And Chris, I know that you kind of, I believe, weren't so sold on the fact that they needed to take an offensive tackle so high, especially since they signed Williams. How do you feel about Brian Burns, or was there anyone else on the board that you kind of would have rather to go with?
I was hoping it was going to be Brian Burns or Montez Sweat, so I'm completely comfortable with the pick. Yeah, I felt like reaching for an offensive tackle here just for the sake of reaching for an offensive tackle never works out.
Right.
Dillard didn't go. Yeah. Dillard still went, 7 or 8 picks behind us?
22, 23 to the Eagles, I believe. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so there you go. And honestly, like I was saying last night to you guys, if this guy was this dead stud left tackle, he would have gone top 5. He would have gone top 10. He's probably the best left tackle in the draft. I mean, I think his tape to me looked better than Jonah Williams. for God's sakes, Jake Long went number 1. How average was he?
Yeah.
At left tackle. And it's just every team in the league, save the Packers and the Cowboys, could probably upgrade their left tackle situation. So
yeah, it's kind of one of the things I've always said too. When you go to pick like the best person, rated person at their position, doesn't mean they're really good. It just means they're the best in this class. That always doesn't translate to the field as the best in the NFL.
That's true. Yeah, and in this class, it arguably is less deep than previous years. So that's a very valid point.
And on top of that.
Oh, good, Bob.
No, I was just gonna say. I just want to throw something in there about Brian Burns. He's said to be 6'5", 249. There was a guy that was an inch taller than him and weighed less than him. So for people that saying he doesn't have the size, his name is Jason Taylor. I think he was pretty good, and he made a pretty good living off of the NFL. And he's only an inch taller than him, and he weighs less than Brian Burns does. Yep. Let me tell you something. By the time this kid finishes this offseason in the weight room, you're going to see a totally different player. And I'm not saying he's going to be a Jason Taylor-esque player, but I am going to say this kid's going to work his butt off. He played almost every single snap this season, I believe. That type of guy is what we need on this team.
Yeah, and walking in here, I saw someone wearing a number 58 Broncos jersey with a Super Bowl 50 patch on it. That guy's getting compared to Brian Burns getting compared to that guy.
And Burns
Von
is 3
Miller.
inches taller than him.
Yeah. So as far as we talked about it all day today and yesterday. As far as getting your true D end, your big guy down there, maybe not the guy, but in a Panthers 3-4 defense, that's some speed coming off.
And the length, man, his length. Oh, it's gonna be. I love the pick. I don't see why people. Would hate
Chris.
it.
Chris, one thing I got to give you some props on is so both of you actually kind of crushed this draft because. Back in December, Bobby said Brian Burns. Around the same time, Chris, you said don't be surprised if Cliff brings in a new quarterback in Kyler Murray, and they deal Josh Rosen, and here we are watching the TV, learning that that Kyler Murray was the pick. Josh Rosen has unfollowed the Cardinals on Instagram. That's now our new 2019 thing.
Petty Ward.
Yeah, and has followed the Dolphins. You got to think that you can't keep both of those quarterbacks now, right, Chris?
Well,
I don't know why you can't. Is it optimal? No, but I
feel bad for Josh Rosen.
I'd be shocked if he got traded today. I do too.
It's like what can you? And that's the scary thing.
It's not fair. It's not really very fair for him.
Like Baker Mayfield has the story where obviously. You get drafted like that to the Browns, and you've seen so many guys dominate at the college level, be drafted number 1, and just really not have the team to do it. And I think that couldn't have painted the picture better for Josh Rosen. Really, just an abysmal season on both sides of the ball that I don't think really had a lot to do with Rosen.
And he's just on a bad team right now.
So.
Yeah.
What do you think he ends up?
Just to be clear, really quick, the Dolphins are in the process. They said they're very close to pulling off the trade for Josh Rosen. So just keep an eye on that. Apparently, it's going to be surrounding the Cardinals receiving Miami's 2019 second-round pick at number 48 overall in exchange for him. So keep an eye on that.
So going on that same token, then
might be another offensive tackle.
Looking down the line further, then what happens to Ryan Tannehill? Does he have a future? Because we were just saying, I don't think
he plays for the Titans.
Cue to the Panthers coming.
Wait, what?
Tannehill plays for the Titans.
He plays for the Titans. Yeah.
What the hell am I talking about then? Who's starting quarterback right now in Miami?
They picked up Ron Fitzpatrick.
Oh my God, yes. Sorry.
Fitzmagic.
Draft offseason, yes. I totally forgot that they moved on from him. So Fitzpatrick, I guess there you go. You get a good second stringer there.
Yeah,
got a guy that can come in and put a couple weeks together.
Even if they trade for him, I still don't know what they're doing because they've already came out and said that they're building towards next year.
Yeah, they were going to kind of tank this year, really, in so many ways.
Well, I think was the term getting thrown around.
Yep.
Well, you can easily say what you're going to do until you have an opportunity open up.
That's very true.
I'm quite sure they didn't know a month ago that they were going to, have an opportunity because everything changes when you hear that. Okay, Arizona's not going to draft Kyler Murray. Then you're like, okay, well, I guess we won't try to attempt to get Rosen. But then you hear, they did draft him. Okay, let's open up.
Very good point,
so everything changes.
But they could have easily taken Dwayne Haskins yesterday.
True.
They could have, but then again, they may have known something that we didn't know yesterday as well. So, maybe Rosen's their guy. Maybe
who did they end up taking?
Yeah.
Who's this?
The Dolphins?
Christian Wilkins.
Wilkins.
Oh, yeah.
The DT.
Well, which was a really good pick.
That's
Yeah.
I mean, this way you could build, still build that defensive line, and possibly you're still getting a young quarterback who might end up being your franchise if you think about it. I mean, just it's all what they want to build it.
I can't believe I forgot about Ryan Tannehill. My bad. For some reason, I thought he was still on the Dolphins, but no, this offseason has been wild.
Man, you don't listen, Dan. You don't have to apologize about anything, man. You know how many times these analysts say the wrong name and the wrong.
And they're getting paid a lot more than you are.
It was Stephen A. Smith who was talking about Hunter Henry, right?
Yeah.
When he wasn't even playing. So there you go. I'll get my one pass for the day. Sorry, Titans fans. Great place to do that here on stage in Nashville. Not even know.
I don't think most Titans fans know that they got Tannehill.
Yeah. I was going to say, now you're talking about QB controversy in Miami. What about Mariota and Tannehill?
It's interesting, man.
Well, guys, I can tell you this. There is a good friend of mine. He is a Titans fan. He DMs me every now and again on Twitter, about their news. I can tell you this. He's fed up with Mariota. Apparently the organization is fed up with Mariota. And all of the fans are fed up with Mariota. Well, it's not really weird because what he was explaining to me was, and I did notice this after he told me. He told me about week 5 or week 6 last season, and he said that if you ever notice, there's guys open down the field. Mariota will look for a check down, or he will look to scramble before he'll take that shot down the field.
Yeah.
And the Titans, I don't know if anybody paid them any attention, but the Titans have been in a lot of games this past season. They just lost a lot of close games because of not taking the shot or because he's missing guys. So when you analyze that, they made a good move in bringing over Ryan Tannehill. And personally, I don't think Mariota's going to be on there. It's going to be funny because I think Jameis Winston and Mariota are going to probably be free agents at the same time sometime in the near future. So ironically enough, they came in together, and I think they're going to both be free agents around the same time together. So it'll be interesting to take a look.
Yeah.
Anyway, hey, I guess we'll start with you guys. Offensive tackle, obviously the big one. I don't think cornerback's off the board tonight, but what's your best case scenario in these next 2 picks? I guess we'll start with you, Chris, as far as positions. I mean, what's off the table to you right now? Is it just wide open? Not so much 47, but the 3rd round pick there, or 100 there, I should say. What do you think happens here tonight?
Yeah, so starting with the 2nd round pick, I think that it's going to be either if one of the tackles they like there is Greg Little still there. I don't see any reason to trade up today. I think it'd be silly, looking at the amount of talent that's still on the board.
Well, we just talked to Vince Richardson, and he brought up a good point where there's a significant drop-off in the tackles from Greg Little to the next one down. So
if you think you're going to lose them.
Yeah, his take was that if you think you're going to lose them, you could move up those 5 or 7 spots. But besides that, I agree with you. I don't think that you need to go crazy. But besides tackle, I mean, where do you go with that 3rd pick?
I don't know that he'll be there with the 1st, 3rd round pick, and so maybe he's an option at the 2nd one. But Nasir Adderley, I really like him. I think that's the type of safety we need to put back there with Eric Reed. And I think that could solidify that position for the next 5 to 6 years.
Yeah, I think they need to address safety
too. Can I ask the
Go ahead,
ask you the obvious question?
Yes.
That I know Den's trying to avoid, but Will Grier. There's been a lot of conversation around him. You guys, I'm just going to be honest. There's been a lot of conversation. Even still to this moment, there's been, quote unquote rumors that the Panthers still want him. Where do we go in this case? You're in the 3rd round. Say Adderley's gone. Say there are no intriguing offensive tackles available. For the sake of staying away from quarterback controversy, do you ignore Grier if he's still there, or do you take him because he's the best available?
I don't like it because you don't have a ton of picks. You don't have what do you have, 6 picks in this draft?
7 total.
Picks.
6 left. Yeah.
I don't know. I'd rather them just take a running back than Will Grier. I don't think that you need to do that, and I think that Grier. I don't want to say it's a wasted pick. I don't think this is the draft to do it. I think you can get more guys later on next year, where this year has more of the guys that you can fill some holes with.
Right.
And I don't think quarterback's one of those holes. But Bobby, are you
So
okay with that? If they pick Will Grier?
Here's the thing. I'm so 50-50 on it. I love Will Greer. You guys know how I feel about him. I've been vocal about it. Do I think he's worth a third-round pick right now with the glaring holes? I don't know. Like, I genuinely don't know. And the reason why I say that is because if he's the best player available at that moment and we ignore it for the sake of what? Like, my question is, why would we pass him? Are we passing him to remove the to keep away from the quarterback controversy so that if Cam has 2 back-to-back bad games, we don't have to worry about the headlines, should the Panthers start Will Greer? Or is it because you just don't think we need to start looking at his potential replacement? Or do you just think that Kyle Allen, and I'm okay with this, but is Kyle Allen and Taylor Heineke the answer?
I think Kyle Allen is good enough for one more year. That's my answer to that.
Okay, here's my whole take on this thing, and this has really kind of changed yesterday. If there's any truth to it, I don't know if y'all saw we had T-Bone on. I don't know if y'all caught that audio or not on the show yesterday, guys. But he brought up that there's things inside being said that a lot of this is getting pushed down from David Tepper after last year, Cam going down, and there's also apparently some reports that Cam's shoulder is not as up to par as it's getting pushed out to be. If there's any truth to that, I can see this move in the third round.
T-Bone with a great point saying basically David Tepper as an owner is saying, listen, I don't want to own a football team that has one quarterback.
Yeah.
And when that guy goes down or has an issue, we mail it in for the season.
Right.
He has no ties to Cam. I can see that.
And it's important then to remember, too, for fans to remember that if this gets picked and that was the situation, there's only so much as a GM you're going to do when your boss, your owner is saying, writing your paychecks, no, you're picking a quarterback at some point in these rounds. You need to pick the best one available.
Exactly.
So people need to remember that, not just jump on Marty Herney in that situation.
You know what I would do if I had to get a quarterback today?
What's that?
I would call the Cardinals
Yeah.
and offer up 2 third-round picks for Josh Rosen before I'd worry about Will Greer or any of those other guys.
Yeah.
I can respect that.
I hear you.
I can definitely respect that.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, hey, we get some more guests on. We're here for another 40 minutes or so. But, again, thanks for calling in, dudes. Bobby, Chris, the guys that are here with me usually every week here on the Keep PounDEN podcast. You guys sticking up for the draft. Obviously, we don't have to really introduce who you are. You guys kill it out there with me. So thanks for hopping on. Wish you were here with us here in Nashville on stage at the Tin Roof.
Chris, how about them Canes, baby?
Oof. I thought we tried so hard.
I ain't gonna let you get away with that.
Now I got 3 Canes on the phone with me here. So Canes fans, I should say.
And just in case people haven't realized, guys, listen. This is like 3-0 right now. Okay, Den called Christian McCaffrey. All right, we spoke on a podcast about DJ Moore last year. We spoke on a podcast about Burns. I mean, can you guys see what's happening? We are the greatest. Clearly, we are the greatest.
I think it's completely fair to say that we're in the know.
Bobby, just Vince McMahon strutting here on the podcast live from Nashville.
They sit here and we talk about sources. Little do you know, they are the sources.
Whatever, man. Hey, for those of you that are in Nashville checking us out, we're here for the next hour. They get a crawfish boil outside. They get the draft party outside here. Big screens coming down. That all kicks off at 3 when we get off the stage here.
Tito's Vodka is back in the house.
Tito's Vodka is here, Chris, and I have not had a bushwhacker. So maybe today's the day for the bushwhacker.
Yes, good call.
Sounds like you're doing it wrong.
Anyways, guys, thanks for hopping on with us. I'll talk to you guys throughout the whole day today, and we're gonna take a quick break. You're listening to Den and Tripp here on the Riot Network. We'll be right back.
See you guys.
Live from Nashville, it's Keep Pound Den.
Back here at the Tin Roof.
I need
Tripp
a guitar,
Morgan.
man.
Yeah, it's a lot of musical instruments around. I love how the draft networks and ESPN and all of them, they have all the cabs. I think we talked about that yesterday.
Yep.
Pretty cool stage setups. So, hey, we hopped on here. We're waiting for our next guest. Matt Harmon from Yahoo Sports is actually coming by.
Woo.
And that's going to be a lot of fun. We're waiting for him to just pull up. But we figured we'd come back on with you guys. Don't want to keep you hanging too much there on the line. And we're going to have some fun with Matt. We're going to talk about some receivers. We haven't talked about receivers all weekend.
Right. Not a huge need right now.
Connor Orr, not exactly correct in his DK Metcalf pick. DK Metcalf still on the board.
Yeah, not even the first round.
I mean, I'm anxious to see where he goes. I thought he'd definitely be a first rounder.
Yeah. See what Matt thinks about that.
We will, and we'll see what he thinks about that and a lot more. I know Matt's a big 49ers fan. They're kind of an interesting team right now.
Yeah.
Nick Bosa, big pick. Controversial Twitter stuff, but can't deny his stuff on the football field. I think that's a big impact for them.
He's got good family genes there.
With Jimmy G coming back as well.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't get their fair shot of a full year with Jimmy G. We get some Panthers fans filling in here. We're at the Tin Roof on Demombrian. They're setting up their draft party out here. That kicks off at 5 or so. Great place to watch the draft. Crawfish broil.
Crawfish.
I think that's, yeah. I think that's. I've never had that. I've also never had a hot chicken. I've never had a bushwhacker.
It sounds like we need to write down a list.
I have had a fireball shot in my
life,
mostly from the girl
well,
gang. So maybe I'll fit into Nashville a little bit. But
I think bushwhacker's a little bit better than fireball.
Hell of a scene down there last night there, man. I didn't notice because, and this isn't like a flex, but we were up front.
Weird way, but all right.
I'm just saying, I didn't notice how many people were actually behind us. Like, I thought, or behind the inner circle, I should say. It was amazing. I think the Barstool guys tweeted it out. They send that camera just up and down Broadway.
It's ridiculous.
And it is just a sea of people.
160,000 people.
Every fan base is here, man. Painted faces.
Yep.
This is my favorite time of the year. It's awesome to check out the Music City Riot here, right here at the Tin Roof. They get together here every Sunday. They disregard all these Titans banners on the wall. And there's a lot of keep pounding. Hey, big keep pounding flag outside here at the Tin Roof, by the way. So if you're looking for a Nashville bar that's friendly to your Carolina Panthers, this is the place to be. So Matt's going to join us in just a minute. But, Tripp, man, this has been fun. We're here for another half an hour or so. We've talked to Vince Richardson. Bobby and Chris were just on with us. We brought on Vince from the UK. Sorry, we brought on Jared Feinberg, who did basically 2 months of position breakdowns for us, as does Vince on the Riot Report.
Right.
I don't even know if anyone on the Riot Report actually mocked Brian Burns.
Really?
Did we get a number for Brian Burns? Does he have a number yet?
No, not that
I saw Bill had his jersey last night, but I didn't know. I think it just said 19.
Yeah, I don't know. Obviously, you can't have 99, so.
That's what he wore in
Florida State. So he can't take that one unless Short wants to work something out, but I don't see
Where
that
happening. Where could he go?
98 still
right?
available?
I think 98's out there. Wasn't Star 98?
That was Star 98.
Yeah,
was
so
Star,
98's a good number.
Yeah, maybe.
That's a good number. So you can only basically do 90 through 100, right? Or 90 through 99?
Something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know those number breakdowns.
Anyway, 3 hours, 30 minutes, night 2 at the draft. The bands are coming in, man. They're all ready to play. I think this is going to be a fun time here at the Tin Roof. A lot different of an environment than yesterday, I kept saying. A lot more Panthers jerseys I've seen now 3 total Panthers draft hats.
Yep. They're starting to pop up more and more, man.
And you know what? They're not bad.
They definitely don't look as terrible. I don't know that.
I don't know if I would wear one. I can't wear a hat that's blue like that. I have to wear like a darker color, or it doesn't look good on me.
Messes up your flow.
At least that's what I tell myself. Yeah.
Well, if you don't like it, you don't like it.
I meant to ask Chris about the Will Brinson and Co. They're over at the Doghouse Saloon right next door. CBS has an awesome scene. The Draft Network is literally right around the corner. They're over at STK Steakhouse. So just walking up and down the street, and then you can walk from all these places right down to Broadway. And I think that you don't see a scene like that here, at many drafts. We went through the Philly draft. We went through the Dallas draft.
Yep.
This is by far the most fan-friendly, the most just things happening in in just bars. Like it's not like it's a big deal that you have to get into this tough place. Like we're on stage at the Tin Roof.
Yeah.
The original Tin Roof.
And it's
they're
awesome.
next door at the Doghouse. STK Steakhouse is a big one. Tootsie's they built off of Tootsie's and put I think
And
ESPN or the Draft Network's up there. Multiple stages. ESPN has a Heisman House right down by the Nissan Stadium, and this all happens right over the stadium. I know you didn't, right next to the stadium, I mean. I know you didn't see it, but one of the things I love is whenever someone's on the clock, how the city really kind of acknowledges that team.
Right.
I don't know if they showed this on the broadcast, but across the bridge, the pedestrian bridge that you walk across to get from Broadway to Nissan Stadium, just lit up with multiple colors and whatever team it was. And that thing was glowing Carolina blue.
Yeah.
They have a lot of hex codes in that. It's not like just red or blue. It is exactly Carolina blue.
And especially with
really
all those
cool to
boards,
see.
man. Like, seeing it on TV, after watching it on TV, it's still, I mean, it's cool looking at the stage and stuff. When you're in person and you see this production that these people have put together, I think our Uber driver was telling us that the news station has been reporting on it and saying it cost them $20 million for this setup.
Really?
The NFL.
Wow.
To set up here in Nashville. But you got 160,000 people, the largest draft crowd ever. I mean, I was sitting up there taking a picture from my phone, looking back, and it's like all the way to the horizon.
Yeah.
And it stayed like that when it was pouring down rain. I mean, they had ponchos handing out to people.
You know what? We didn't even touch upon the rain.
Yeah.
Because I was not rained on. Let's just say that. You guys were rained on. I was looking out at the river, and I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I can't believe how hard it is raining and how little people have moved.
Right.
Like, no one cared that it was raining. They've waited so long in this offseason to finally get a glimpse of whatever it is. NFL players, D'Angelo Williams, you met.
Wife got a picture with D'Angelo. Yep.
Might not be the most popular guy in Carolina right now,
yeah.
but nonetheless, D'Angelo Williams down there, you guys hanging out with him.
He was. I will
Roger
say this
Goodell.
about we've had these issues with D'Angelo, but I will say this: I saw a couple of like stars around the stage walking by, kind of tend to their own business.
Mm-hmm.
D'Angelo walked right through the crowd, and any person that came up to him noticed him, wanted a picture, wanted an autograph. He was extremely nice to my wife. Took a picture with her and multiple other fans while he was walking down. So that was really nice of him. I mean, a lot of guys don't always do that.
Yeah.
But that was cool of him. I will say that. So.
Very nice, very nice. Again, Matt Harmon will be jumping on with us in just a minute. We're going to talk about wide receivers. Again, with something we haven't talked about in this draft. Only two of them, I think, off the board so far.
K-Neil Henry and Marquise
Brown. I know that Matt's a big fan of Miles Boykin. We'll see where he goes. Big Notre Dame guy. We're going to go through, but I want to go through some of the Panthers stuff with him. I mean, when you talk about last year's draft, there was some controversy as far as who should go first, DJ Moore, DJ Moore, or Calvin Ridley. And kind of looking back at those seasons, I know that you can weigh those grades on the two players.
Right.
Falcons fans probably have one opinion. Panthers fans might have another. We're going to see what Matt thinks, kind of being a neutral source. And he's a Game of Thrones guy, I think. So
yes.
I know nothing about Game of Thrones.
He's going to enlighten us and educate us on the throne of games.
I love it, man. Anyway, good stuff here down at the Tin Roof on Demaumbry. And come down, grab your drinks. We're here for another half hour or so. And the draft does kick off a little early. Don't forget, last night it was 7 p.m. Central, 8 Eastern. Tonight it's 6 p.m. Central, 7 Eastern.
You're killing it, man.
I've been doing really well on the time conversions. When that stuff has to start carrying over to London, it gets really difficult. But anyway, we're going to take a quick break. I think Matt's coming up here, pulling up. We're going to get him all wired up. And we're going to talk receivers with Matt Harmon. We're going to take a quick break, and you're listening to Den and Tripp on the Riot Network.
Live from Nashville, it's Keep Pound Den.
Here we are at the Tin Roof on Demambry, and still waiting for Matt Harmon's
In traffic.
Traffic's getting a little heavy here.
It's a lot worse today than it was yesterday.
In Nashville, but he'll be here in a minute. But while we're waiting, we brought back on Marty Harrison, who runs the Music City Riot here in Nashville. This is your home bar.
That's right. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for having me on, and thanks for coming out and doing your podcast live here at Tin Roof, dude. This is awesome. You guys have done an amazing job. Just a big shout out to Tin Roof. You know, they do have their big draft party tonight again for round 2 and 3. That starts at 5 to 11. It's big crawfish boil. You just have to pay. It's a free entry. You just have to.
Look at that wonderful crawfish.
Yeah, the great looking crawfish, right? So,
Dan, why don't you try crawfish live?
No, I'm well, I will try one. I don't want to do it live because what I'll do is I'll spill it on my shirt and I'll become like a YouTube viral video. You know. What's up?
He said he'll pill it for you.
I have no idea what that means.
I've never had a crawfish myself,
I've never
so
had one.
I don't know. I feel like it's something that everybody should be trying, though.
I'll try
one.
Bring it up here.
I'm
gonna try
yeah.
crawfish on the air.
Yeah, we'll see what it.
So
I'm kind of nervous about this.
So can
actually.
I just have like a very small sample? You eat the whole thing?
No, you eat just the tail.
Okay.
It's like a lobster. Imagine a lobster that grows up in a rice.
Okay, like a lobster bug. Okay.
A lobster bug.
So yeah, let's do this. Is it gonna be messy?
No. I'm gonna get rid of all the messy stuff for you.
This is my man.
Oh, dude, he's peeling it for us and everything.
He's a pro.
Do you offer your services in Boston to crack the lobsters?
No, I'll offer other services in Boston.
Okay. We'll get to those. So I just go ahead and go for it, huh?
Yeah.
Let's do this. Away from the mic. Oh, dude.
Is that good?
Yeah.
It's good?
It's like a spicy lobster.
Yeah, and they're all fresh too. Like a lot of times you can't get them fresh because they have to get drove in.
Oh wow, yeah.
Nice.
We drove in 900 pounds yesterday morning. We just had another 750 pounds show up today.
And you guys are cooking these right out here.
Yeah.
Oh man.
All you can eat.
All
you can eat.
Hey, you pay the entry. It's all you can eat.
All you can eat lobster
What's the
broil.
entry?
$27.
$27.
$27.
I don't know how to do it. My wife's gonna teach people.
There you
Oh,
go.
wow.
And they've got crawfish cracking lessons.
Yeah,
Look at
this is
this.
amazing. This is amazing.
I
Sweet.
would eat 100,000 of those. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
appreciate
That was
that.
awesome.
Yeah, that was great.
Come down to the Tin Roof lobster broil.
The-
Crawfish broil.
Crawfish
Which
boil,
are like
yeah.
a little lobster.
So-
that
Yeah.
really was really delicious. So-
We're keeping up now, Dan. We've checked off your crawfish. Now we got bushwhackers, and what was the other one?
I had
There was
no
something
idea
else.
what crawfish was.
Yeah, well, it's
I knew
little
what it
baby,
was. I never
baby
had
lobsters,
one.
basically, right?
Yeah. I'm into that.
Yeah,
That. But
there you
anyway, we were talking about the Tin Roof, what they've done here for the Panthers.
Yeah.
Obviously hooking you guys up, getting you guys pretty close last night, right?
Yeah, so the big shout out to the Panthers. They actually reached out to me and said they had some tickets for us to get into their kind of fan draft zone area where it's kind of a little bit better, standing room only, but better access to
Right.
than the obviously the general public. And you're pretty close, right?
Yes,
So
you're right up
Carolina hooked us up with for my group and it was awesome. We had a great experience, and then actually they ended up upgrading me up to I was 4 rows
You were up in front there.
behind Roger Goodell. Like
Right.
I was watching him 4 rows away.
So were you there when Brian Burns came
Yeah.
down there?
Yeah, yeah.
And
So
Michael
he-
Irvin came down there as well.
Yeah, Michael Irvin came down and kind of gave everybody high fives, and then Burns came down and took a selfie with us. That was really
Nice.
cool, and I'm actually really excited about that pick. Actually, I think I think it's gonna be great.
We're excited about it. There are some that are upset, but Den and I and a lot of the other people we talked to are excited.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I said all season.
Yeah.
It's hard to mess it up at this point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
How
how did I mean going into it? I think the big common feeling was that Burns would never be there.
that's true.
Are you happy with it? Do you
No,
like it?
I am. I was more of a sweat guy, actually. I kind of wanted him to fall to us, and I guess he did, and he kept on going, right? And I
Right.
guess Herney, he had his eye on Burns, and that was probably on the top of the list, right? If he falls to us, we are taking him.
Yeah.
This is our guy, and
Nice dude.
clearly he did. So
Well,
but-
hey Harrison,
Yeah,
thanks
thank-
for everything you did
yeah,
here for us.
thank
Thanks
you
for
so
getting
much
all
for
that.
hooking me
Nice
up
to
as
meet
well.
you, man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I appreciate
no
that.
problem.
Man.
Awesome
You
running it
and
here.
the wife.
yeah,
What you do here in Nashville for the Panthers and for the Music City Riot.
Yeah,
So
great. Thanks for
Awesome
having
to
me,
meet
and looking forward to round 2 and 3 tonight.
Love it, dude.
Absolutely.
Yeah, awesome.
Great.
Get some starters out here.
We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back with Matt Harmon from Yahoo Sports. We're going to talk about some receivers And, we'll get to that on the other side. You're listening to the Riot Network here with Tripp and Den. We'll be right back.
Live from Nashville, it's Keep Pound Den.
Back here at the Tin Roof in Nashville on Demombrian. Our last 15 minutes here, Tripp. We've been here the last 2 days.
Flying by, man.
Broadcasting live on, whether you're on the Riot Report YouTube, Panther Source YouTube, Riot Report Facebook page. We're on my Twitter
everywhere.
at Keep PounDEN. We are everywhere on the web right now, and we are happy to be joined now by Matt Harmon, football writer and analyst for Yahoo Sports. He's at @Matt_Harmon_BYB on Twitter. Thanks for hopping on with us, man.
I appreciate it.
Oh, man. I mean, had to fight a lot of traffic to get over
heard,
here coming from an interview with Derrick Henry a little bit ago. But, yeah, I mean,
how'd that go?
It was honestly, it was great. He is one of, interviewing these guys, it's always, a little hit or miss what you're going to get, like energy-wise, personality. He was a lot of fun, really engaging. It was with Tostitos, too, so we did a little bit of a nacho-making competition. So be on the lookout for that. It's going to be a fun video.
I love nachos.
Very cool.
I mean, who doesn't? He didn't realize he wasn't allowed to eat them in the middle of it. It was like we were supposed to be judged. So, I can't blame him, though. It's a long day.
You can never have just one either, So, awesome stuff, man. Dude, crazy round one.
Yeah.
Let's just start there real quick. I mean, down up by the stage, two of the biggest shocks were Farrell going to the Raiders, and obviously Jones going to the Giants. I mean, do you agree with both of those? But anything else that kind of stood out to you as far as round one goes
Shockers.
that you didn't expect at all?
Yeah, those were the big ones. I mean, the Daniel Jones thing with the Giants, it was shocking, but not shocking. I mean, it was shocking that, our boy Dave Gettleman, like that's the funny part, I know a lot of Giants fans at work. I was interviewing a couple Giants fans for our show last night. I just kept saying to them, like, look, been there, okay? Like,
we understand.
I hated Dave Gettleman before it was cool, all right? So, but yeah, I mean, that was a shock, but it does make sense for them to go with a quarterback of the future because whether they want to admit it or not, it seems like they've been lying to themselves for the last couple of years. The Eli Manning situation is done. And I actually think for Jones' sake, no, I don't think he's a great prospect. I think he's like an Andy Dalton type ceiling.
Right.
But I also think that the Giants do kind of have an underrated ecosystem to put a young quarterback in. They've got Golden Tate, Evan Ingram, Sterling Shepard's a player I really like, and a good running back, and they've made some additions on the offensive line. So that was definitely, I think, the biggest shock. And also Drew Lock not going in the first round and someone not trading up to 32 with New England to get that fifth-year option for Drew Lock. That just kind of goes to show that clearly doesn't have a lot of believers out there.
Yeah, and, one thing that you tweeted out was how, Will Grier, obviously a big topic in Carolina, about, kind of where he fell in the rankings of Grier versus Jones and Locke. As far as the Panthers go, Will Grier is a sensitive topic right now.
Yeah.
Where do you think Grier actually ends up?
I think Grier ends up being a mid-round 2, maybe round 3 pick. I mean, like with Locke being on the board now, that does seem to be a wild card. But, there are a lot of evaluators that I respect on both the analytics side and the film side that really think Grier is, maybe the quarterback 2 of this class.
Yeah,
like
I've seen a lot of that too. Yep.
Matt Waldman, one of my favorite evaluators in the business, he has him as his top quarterback in this class. So I do think he's going to end up being a second, third round pick. I'm hoping it's not to the Carolina Panthers, but we will see.
Yeah. Well, sticking on round one, Panthers fans are pretty split right now, and no one expected Brian Burns to be there. I didn't, at least.
Yeah.
My pick was Andre Dillard with the expectation. It literally said that in my mock was I'm taking Dillard because Burns won't be here. A lot of people upset that they didn't go offensive tackle. Of course, you got 2 more days here of the draft to address that. What are your thoughts on the Panthers taking Brian Burns? Kind of a can't go wrong pick, or do you think that was a little risky not getting Cam some protection?
I mean, it's definitely risky to kind of pass on the offensive line for a second year in a row. But as you mentioned, they have resources here on the second day to go after and hopefully get some good prospects there because this line does need a lot of work.
Yep.
Now, I think with Burns, though, you do pass up on the offensive tackle, but that defensive end position is probably just as bad as the offensive line at this point. Like, who is going to put pressure on the quarterback from the outside of Mario Addison? I don't really love
32.
Yeah, exactly. I don't love the options there. So I get it from that perspective, and we'll see if he ends up being worth the 16th overall pick. I thought he was going to go to the Falcons.
That was
what we all
I think
thought,
I actually had a dream about that they would take him. And my fear was that the Falcons were going to take him, and for literally a whole season, we were going to hear about how the Panthers should have lost to the Saints and all that stuff.
Right.
And you can't do anything about that. I think they got their guy anyway. But one of the big things we wanted to bring you on is you're big on the wide receivers in this draft.
Right.
I know that Boykin's your guy. First receiver off the board is Brown. When it comes to receivers being off the board, just going back to last year, we had kind of a controversy with is the pick DJ Moore, is it Calvin Ridley? Now, a year later, kind of looking back at those two guys, they're graded differently in a lot of different things. Like some way Yak will go to DJ Moore. Some that look at more of the stats, the touchdowns. Looking back at that pick, did the Panthers make, in your mind, the right pick to take DJ Moore over Calvin Ridley? And what do you think? What do you think DJ has kind of on the table that he can still bring in year 2?
So the reason I liked the DJ Moore pick last year, I think that Calvin Ridley right now is the better wide receiver, no question to me. I think he's a better route runner. I think he's a better separator.
That's the big key.
Yeah, from the outside, he's going to get off press coverage better. He's going to separate. I mean, he was a pro level route runner and separator in college, was Calvin Ridley.
Yeah.
But the reason I liked the Moore pick for the Panthers is that no quarterback in the NFL to me has had to put up with making more high degree of difficulty throws, low probability throws than Cam Newton since he came into the league. And I think DJ Moore, in that Golden Tate type of mold, is a guy who creates layup catches, layup receptions, just plays that, you can get the guy open against zone coverage in the middle of the field. Maybe people don't think that's as valuable, but I mean, I look at a guy like Juju Smith-Schuster in Pittsburgh, and, we'll see how he does this year without Antonio Brown. But, I mean, he is a guy who, catches a ton of passes against zone coverage. He's not a great separator against press man coverage to me on the outside, but he does just eat up production in the middle of the field, and I think that's the type of player that DJ Moore can be. Maybe not that productive, but I think that's what the Panthers have to hope for. So I still like the pick, and I think the key really for them is, are they going to add more to the wide receiver room, and is Curtis Samuel really going to take that step to be the Antonio Brown light of this offense? Because then I think if those two guys both break out in year 2, then we're looking at year 3 for Samuel, but barely plays as a rookie. I think that then we could really see something special in the receiver.
And I think that's the fun part to watch is a lot of us are big Curtis Samuel fans.
Yeah.
And I think last year coming out you hit on Calvin Ridley being the better route runner and all that over DJ, and I think that was exactly what everybody was looking at last year was coming out. Yeah, Calvin Ridley was more polished. He was probably more pro ready, but the ceiling of DJ Moore was probably a little bit higher athletically, and if he can improve his route running and getting off in press coverage. And I think that is definitely something he still needs to improve on. Hopefully he does. But, I mean, the Yak was just ridiculous and fun to watch last year. And
we'll see. Me being from Boston, Panthers fan, Yak football is something I've always wanted them to get into.
Yeah.
They finally did with McCaffrey, really going for it now with DJ. But one thing that's very interesting in that regard is this Chris Hogan signing.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see that coming at all. I don't think anyone in Carolina. I was surprised he was still around there. Granted, he kind of fell off the stat column last year. That might have been because of Gordon. I don't know. It's tough. It's tough to really stand out too much.
I think he just had a bad year.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, that's the long and short of it to me. Is I kind of like the signing though because again, it's a cheap deal. 1 year, who cares? Like, if he comes in and contributes, that's going to be a nice bit of depth for them because, honestly, after Samuel and Moore, I don't really have – we'll see if Rashad Ross comes in from the AAF and does anything. But,
I don't – Rocket. You don't get the Rocket nickname if, that's big to me. I'm listening. If your name's the Rocket.
Those two guys will be interesting to see which one I think ends up making the final roster. I like Hogan, though, because he can play a lot of different roles. I mean, we saw him succeed as really their outside X receiver, like vertical threat the year before Brandon Cooks arrives. And that next year, he kind of moves in and plays almost like an Adam Thielen type role in the big slot position when Julian Edelman goes down. So I think there's a lot of ways that Hogan can contribute to the offense. But I still kind of would like to see them add maybe one more guy that could potentially be an outside X receiver and split some of that role with Curtis Samuel if he does indeed fully develop into like the AB light type of player.
Because that's one thing that we pointed out on our last podcast before heading down here was how Chris Hogan was really used as a deep threat in New England. And the talk here is, Torrey Smith will bring a deep threat in veteran and leadership. And I don't know if that signing is really, or trade I guess, is really panning out for them. And I think that puts Torrey in a weird position now with Chris Hogan. So I think he can be your possession receiver, if you want to call that in Carolina. I don't know if the other guys are really that. But
you still got Jarius Wright over there, too.
Yeah.
He's a big third down chain mover for us last year.
There's some decent options.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not I wouldn't say it's one of like the 15 best wide receiver groups in the NFL, but it's certainly no longer, like absolutely in contention to be 32nd, which is what we've seen a lot in Carolina.
Yeah.
And I like that they've kind of completely course corrected. Again, it all comes back to Dave Gettleman.
Exactly.
Here. Just this awful idea of him to double down on two big wide receivers who really struggle to separate. Funchess, I think, has gotten a lot better in his career.
Yeah.
He's not Kelvin Benjamin, but I like that they've gone away from that and they're getting more pure separators.
Yeah, I think Funchess kind of fell into that role that he wasn't really drafted for.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to actually do pretty well in the Colts, and you're going to see a lot of Andrew Luck, versus Cam Newton talk and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And especially even from Boston, people are saying you have a lose-lose now. If Chris Hogan does well, it's because of the Patriots' pedigree, and if they don't, and then Cam can't win with Hogan, but Brady can. So anyway, speaking of receivers that are still in the draft, DK Metcalf, I thought was a first-round talent. I don't know. Maybe, Connor Orr from Sports Illustrated came on, mocked him to the Panthers. We kind of picked his brain on that one, but
interesting, right?
DK Metcalf still on the board. What are your feelings about DK?
I like DK a lot. Look, I would probably rank him as wide receiver 4 in this class to me. But I would have taken him in the first round if I needed a receiver because I think that he is a rare explosive asset. And I know that my comparison for him is Dez Bryant. I actually asked him about this yesterday. I said, what do you think about that comparison? Because, he wanted to be, sort of in the Julio Jones, Calvin Johnson mold. And, I mean, he could potentially be a player like that. I don't know. But the reason I like the Dez Bryant comparison is because how aggressive he is off the line of scrimmage and at the catch point. And people remember Dez for what he was at the end of his career. When he was just couldn't get open versus anybody. I tweeted this out with reception perception, under the 10th percentile success rate versus man in press coverage in his final year at Dallas. But he could get open and get off the line of scrimmage really well, not because he was a refined route runner, but because he was just a guy that was so physical, so explosive. And I think DK could be a player like that if he gets matched with the right system. So a team like Seattle, top of the second round, they could look at him. I think there's a lot of potential good landing spots for him, even though he's not going in the first round.
Interesting. Matt Harmon with us from Yahoo Sports. He's at Matt Harmon _BYB on Twitter. Just a few more minutes here, then our time here is done here at the Tin Roof for the last 2 days.
Told you it was going to take forever to get here, then it just flies by.
But you being a 49ers fan, we get to talk about
a lifelong
49ers
fan in 2019.
There you go. I like that. Obviously taking Nick Bosa, number 2, had some controversial tweets, but as a football player, can't really deny how good it is. Feelings on that pick, I mean, I don't think you can go anywhere else with that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that Quinnen Williams was the best player in the draft.
Okay, I guess you could have went.
But the reason I like them going Bosa there, because, I mean, he's maybe the second, third, whatever, best player in the draft, depending on what you think about Kyler Murray. But I think that the 49ers needed that position, because they have solid options on the interior. DeForest Buckner is like one of the most underrated defenders to me in the NFL. Eric Armstead has developed into a solid player. And Solomon Thomas, he hasn't come on yet, but I don't think he is a natural edge rusher. I think he's more of an interior rusher in that Trey Flowers, Michael Bennett type mold. So they have options on the interior of the line. And across from D Ford, who they just traded for, and that trade looks really good for the 49ers in conjunction with what the Chiefs ended up giving up for Frank Clark.
No kidding.
So, right. So they needed that position. I think he completes the front of their defense. And I actually think, this is a defense that's really, really struggled the last few years. They've given up a lot of production, especially outside of Richard Sherman last year. No one could cover in that secondary. But that front four, and that goes a little bit deeper than that, I think really gives them potential to have a good defense up front.
Yeah, and didn't really get a fair shot of seeing Jimmy G out there.
No.
So I think you give him another year, and we'll see what goes on. But I know that you're also a big Game of Thrones fan.
Absolutely.
So I know almost nothing about Game of Thrones except that the song's pretty cool, and I think it's shot very well. But
it went over well at the draft last night anyway, so when the band played it.
Last question I had to ask you, CBS did a thing where they went through and compared every football team to a Game of Thrones character. And they compared the 49ers to, I'm probably going to butcher it, Varys, V-A-R-Y-S.
Varys? Yeah. Interesting.
How do you feel about that? Is that a bad comparison? And I think it's because they talked about him whispering. I don't know. I think it's because they're kind of an under-the-radar team. Does that make sense?
Oh, okay. I like that. I also think that Kyle Shanahan, very versatile offensive coordinator. I'm a huge Shanahan fan. I think that he's a great designer of offense.
We know about that all too well from the past.
Right. So I will see if he really forms into a great head coach. That's, to be determined. I think with Jimmy G healthy this year, they might be able to do that. But because, he's so different, he adapts really well to the players that are on the roster through, he's evolved his dad's system from years ago, this traditional West Coast offense, to really incorporate a lot of new, more modern concepts. And I think Varys, is a character who has adapted throughout the show, and some would call him he's a bit of a snake because of this or whatever. But, he's come from being in King's Landing. Now he's with the Khaleesi. It's great to see all that. So I think that I can work around that comparison.
Okay. Are you happy, without any spoilers, are you happy so far with the first, 2 episodes?
Oh, absolutely.
3? Yeah, I actually saw you were in one of your last shows. You were actually talking about if you don't like the first 2 episodes, I can't do anything for you. You should totally love these episodes. I've seen a lot of people out there saying the show's been bad since season 5. I don't personally watch it either. But there's a lot of controversy. Final
this is
season,
the last one. Yeah, hashtag Bet the Realm. If you're a Game of Thrones fan out there, we will be doing a live recap show every Monday.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, biggest coup of my entire career, guys. I've been very lucky to have the job that I do, talk about football for a living. And when I decided, I was like, we should have a Game of Thrones show. We should just have. We should just let me. Yahoo Sports.
So
let me do that.
I'm starting a double shot at love, which is with Pauly D and Vinny from the Jersey Shore.
2 completely different
recap show. So I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. You just look. Sports, pop culture, mix them together. Yep. It's fun. Yeah, so at 10 a.m. Pacific every Monday after the episode, we're going to recap everything. John Nichols, our NBA social editor there, he's with me. Last week we had Dwayne Allen. We had Roy Hibbert the week before. And, that was Dwayne and I and John all talked about, that second episode was just such a good, table. What did people want them to? I'm sorry, if you guys don't watch the show, you're like, what the hell is he talking about?
I'm down. I might go watch it now, though.
But for all the
this just turned into your post show.
Yeah, seriously. Do people want them to all come back to Winterfell and then just get iced? No. Let's see these characters that we haven't interacted. You haven't all interacted together for 8 seasons since the beginning of the show. Bringing it back, as Dwayne said, bringing it back to where it all started was really cool. Yeah. Now, last thing on Game of Thrones. The funniest part of this weekend, so I've interviewed 4 guys that just came from the Derrick Henry. I talked to Marquise Brown, DK Metcalf, and Josh Allen the day before. Every time I'm trying to get some Game of Thrones, 0 for 4. None of them watch it.
It's a big investment.
It is a big investment.
Well, especially because I feel a lot of people weren't in it from the beginning.
Yeah,
right.
And they had to go back and watch whatever. I can't do that. I can't binge.
I'll be honest. I watched the first season, and when the boy gets pushed out. And falls and stuff I was like, oh, okay, now we're getting interesting. I watched 2 episodes of the second season, and I didn't watch it for a month because of stuff, and I never went back to it. It just didn't catch me in a second. Everybody's like, oh, well, if you make it halfway through season 2, you're going to be hooked. You're not going anywhere. Yeah. And I was like, well, so you're telling me I have to wait halfway through season 2 to get interested? Come on, man.
Anyway, Matt, thanks for stopping by, man. Matt Harmon, Yahoo Sports, at Matt Harmon _BYB. And you said what else are you up to today and tomorrow? You said you're interviewing some folks. Are you?
Yeah, we'll be doing some video content at Buffalo's Nashville.
So you've been doing that last 2 nights. We've been trying to make it, but we're already downtown.
It's pretty wild down there at this point. But so we did a live show last night. Today, Liz Lowe's and I will just be doing a couple VOD hits, talking about these wide receivers, where they're going to come off the board, stuff like that. So we'll be doing that, and then we got a podcast tomorrow tomorrow's Saturday. Yeah,
tomorrow.
Saturday.
Yes.
Yeah, the schedule is totally.
And you're from the West Coast, so it's still messing with you.
Yeah,
the time zones are killing me because
Yeah.
we had people calling in from London.
Oh, man.
I'm an hour behind. It's,
Yeah.
You know that Zach Galifianakis gif where he's like
doing all the numbers.
Yeah, that's me. So.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, thank you guys so much for having me on, and
Thank you for joining.
hopefully the Panthers kill it,
Let's do
in round
it,
2 and 3. Let's see some tackles. You
Yeah,
know?
see,
let's
we
see
got
some
picks
offensive
coming up.
tackles.
No Will Greer quite yet anyway.
We'll see. Yeah, Grady Little. Greg Little.
Yeah.
Will Greer, who knows who goes tonight. But anyway, thanks for joining us for the last 2 days here at the Tin Roof in Nashville. Thanks to Harrison for hooking this up. And thanks to you, Matt, for stopping by.
my pleasure,
We're going to go check out draft night 2. And thanks to you guys for joining us on our various networks. And thanks to you, Tripp, for doing this with me.
Absolutely, man.
We'll
Thanks
see you
for
guys
having me.
next week where we'll recap the draft and maybe some Game of Thrones.
Oh, there you go.
Have a good one, guys. Keep pounding.